Section 4, Part 3, Communication with Scholars and Family. Our learning target includes that educators will be able to script and practice sharing good news and growth opportunity phone calls with families. How do we share the good news about scholars and how they are behaving well in class, behaving well in school-wide areas such as the cafeteria, hallways? And one way to reset our classrooms is to definitely look towards really reinforcing the behaviors we want to see. We can do that through praise phone calls. And so here's a short video that really helps to show us why it's so important for us to use praise phone calls as a strategy to reinforce positive behaviors.
This is Ms. No Nonsense. Her students learn like crazy because she has high standards and builds good relationships. She reinforces those things by making parent phone calls, usually 30 minutes a day, and it seems to work. Kids in her class try hard, complete homework, and stay engaged. So during her prep period one day, she decides to sell the idea to some of her colleagues. She tells them her increased phone time is really paying off and offers to show them how. But her idea is met with understandable ambivalence. Miss Creative Writing says she has too much grading to make time for calls. Mr. Studio Art doesn't do well having hard conversations. Miss Comp Sci thinks phone calls go beyond the scope of her duties. And Mr. History doesn't speak the same language as many of his students' parents. But Miss Biology thinks she could make it work and asks Miss No Nonsense to show her how. They go to Miss Biology's classroom, and Miss No Nonsense asks her which of their students' families should get the first calls. Like most teachers would, Miss Biology points out Tom and David. These are the students that teachers often identify for some type of intervention, like calling home or a parent meeting. They might sometimes get decent grades, but they often show low effort and can be a distraction to themselves and others. But Miss No Nonsense stresses that the other kids need attention too. There's Kinzina, who's doing well but could be doing great. Susie, who it's easy to sometimes forget about. Ulysses, who's okay now but could soon be at risk of failing. And then there's Sarah, who needs inspiration and urgency. You should be calling all of their parents, says Miss No Nonsense. Why? Well, first of all, it's fair. It's your job to get all students to learn, not just the ones who show up ready and willing. Moreover, investing certain students in the work can have a snowball effect. If Sarah looks around and sees her peers working hard, she might be motivated to step up her game too. And remember, says Miss No Nonsense, don't let yourself believe that your students can't grow. Your mindset should be that all of them have the potential to be like Kinzina. Miss No Nonsense totally understands where the other teachers were coming from. Their reasons for not calling are valid. But Miss No Nonsense makes the time, because 30 minutes a day calling families pays much higher dividends than, say, 30 more minutes spent tweaking tomorrow's lesson. She even bought a hands-free device to use her commute time for calls. When she needs a translator, she often asks to speak to an older sibling. And although she doesn't like having hard conversations about students any more than the rest of us, her conversations aren't as hard, because she makes positive calls too. That's why parents tend to trust her and have her back. Ms. Biology looks sold. She's ready. She plans to call Sarah's dad to tell him that Sarah answered 3 questions today in class, way more than normal. And then she's going to call Tom's aunt to see if she can brainstorm how to get Tom more focused during independent work. But what does she even say? She's never made these kind of calls before. Miss No Nonsense says not to worry. She wrote it all down. A manual for what to say when making both praise and correction calls. Click to the next mini to learn more. Hey look! It's Miss No Nonsense, sharing lunch with Miss McRookie and Mr. Solid. Now this is professional development. Mr. Solid and Miss McRookie want to learn how to make parent phone calls, and with Miss No Nonsense, they're learning from the best. They know that part of the reason Miss No Nonsense can be demanding of her students is that she also makes it clear to them how important their success is to her. One way she does that is by calling home, both to praise her students and help them make better decisions. And it looks like our 2 students are ready to learn. Miss No Nonsense primarily makes two kinds of phone calls. Each follows a specific formula. She makes praise calls to students who are exhibiting behaviors in the classroom that she wants to continue. Making a call home about good choices messages to the student that Miss No Nonsense cares enough about them to notice even the little things they do. So, she makes sure to follow 3 rules in a praise call. 1. She praises choices, not results. Students won't always immediately succeed, but if they're showing effort towards their goals, that's their end of the bargain. 2. She's highly specific with her praise. Generalities don't sound as genuine, and when she reveals that she's paying close attention to a student's actions, it can immediately impact their choices going forward. 3. She uses student-centered language like, Susie should be proud of herself. This reinforces that the student is ultimately in control of her own success. Ready, Miss McRookie? Take a look at your roster and pick a student for whom you have very specific positive feedback. Take it away.
Hi, Miss Harper. Hi, this is Miss McRookie. How are you? Yeah, I was just calling to talk to you about Jacob. Do you have a minute? Great. So today I gave the students what I knew was going to be a really challenging problem. Yeah, and instead of giving up or asking for help, Jacob made the incredible choice to go back to his notes. He found the formula that he needed to get to the correct solution. Yeah, he should be really proud that he was able to think creatively and solve his own problem. Yep, that's it, Miss Harper. I'm just hoping to see more of the same thing. All right, bye.
Great job, Miss McRookie. But we're not done yet. Miss No Nonsense's correction call formula has 3 key aspects too. 1. She frames the call as a problem getting in the way of the student's learning that needs to be solved, rather than as a punishment she's delivering. 2. She describes with specificity the poor choices that she's seeing. 3. She makes sure to identify and discuss steps that can be taken to solve the problem, including soliciting suggestions from the parent.
Now we're going to look at a praise phone call and show you a script that you can use with some positive phrase expressions that will support you in your process. So praise phone call, using the sample that we were given, we've added a way of introducing yourself and identifying who you are, what school you're from, as well as how to conclude the conversation. So we're going to use what we just saw in that video, but we're going to add our own elements. So for example, in your praise phone call script, it's important to introduce yourself and then ask permission, right? Because we don't know if this is a convenient time for the parent. We don't know if they just walked into their job. We don't know if it's just a bad time of day to catch them. So they need to know who we are, and this is a good time. So we say, hello, my name is teacher XYZ. And I am the science teacher or the math teacher or the art teacher, or I am the Spanish teacher or French teacher, right? At AYZ elementary school or middle or high school. So to make sure they know where are we calling from? Parents get calls from doctor's offices and all kind of places all day long. And so identify yourself. Is this a good time to share some good news? So when people know that you're calling to share good news, they will make time, right? So even if it's not a good time, it's good news. So that's a great statement to open up. Hey, is this a good time to share some good news with you? And they'll say most likely yes, if they can, right? If not, then you need to reschedule at another time that's convenient for them. And then it says, is this the guardian? You want to make sure that you're talking to the guardian of the following student. You don't want to disclose any information about a scholar without talking to their legal guardian. So is this the guardian or family member of said student? And so once they say yes, well, wonderful. Then we go into what the video told us. Praise scholar choices, not results. So what is the specific behavior that was displayed that we want to continue to reinforce? Did you praise that choice? And was the feedback scholar centered? Again, we don't want to create people pleasers. So we want to keep it about the scholar, not about our approval. Avoid saying I statements like, oh, I'm so proud of. I mean, maybe you are proud of the person, but you know what? We want the scholar to be proud of themselves. And so we have a certain way that we can frame this so scholars start to become proud of themselves and it not being about us them getting that statement of our approval. So, again, we say the good news is that said scholar did a wonderful job in class today and then we want to be very specific when they chose to help another student with the project. So that's an example of some good news, right? He or she demonstrated leadership by sharing ideas and respect by cleaning up the work area. And also, he or she should be proud of his or her choices today. And so I just wanted you to call because they should be really proud of themselves because they really, were a great contributor to the learning environment. That makes it about the scholar. That makes it about their choices. That makes it about the fact that what they did contributed to their learning and somebody else's learning. So this is all about their choices and reinforcing that. Okay, wonderful, wonderful. And so then the third part of our script really includes how we close the conversation. Okay, oops. So forgive me. So positive phrasing isn't the easiest for some of us, right? Positive feedback, sometimes you may need a script, you may need some items. And so if you Google report card comments, positive report card comments, you can find a lot of different resources out there, but we do have one that categorizes several areas: attitude, behavior, conduct, different things. So these are just some examples that what one might see on a report card comment, especially for certain private organizations that have thorough written comments for scholars. So I might call home and say, hey, your son or your daughter, they show initiative. They look for new ways to get involved in the learning every day. Really want to continue to encourage that. If you can partner with me in that process, we really, your son or daughter should be proud that they're striving to reach their fullest potential. They're committed to doing their best every day. They demonstrate that work ethic, that sweat equity in completing their assignments. They seek new challenges, and they're taking responsibility for their learning. So all of these are positively phrased samples that we can use, whether we want to focus in on scholar attitude, their behavior, their conduct, and whatever else topics or things. Then the way we will close out, so you want to make sure you have your positive affirmation. You want to make sure that you have literally written that into your script before you call home, so you know what you're calling home from, and you're very clear. And this keeps the language positive. Again, there should be zero negated words. So in your praise phone call script, you want to make sure that you end the call on a positive high. So you say, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate your partnership. Is this the best number to reach you on or best way to communicate? The parent will confirm or give you updated contact information. And then you says, well, if you ever have a question or concern, please contact me. You can provide your phone number, email, or text and say, thank you for your time. Have a wonderful day. And then you're done. Now, what happens when we have to have a growth phone call? Meaning there's some misbehavior. There's some behaviors that we would like to help to curb or to adjust, right? So we have some ideas. We've already given some strategies. But again, how do you do this with only using positive expressions? Meaning we are going to speak to the behavior we want to see. So we can in fact say, hey, this occurred and this is what we want to see, without using don't, want, can't, and all these negative words, right? So let's take a look at this short clip and then we'll go into our script.
In this installment of our multimedia podcast, we want to share with you some tips for making those parent phone calls you need to make positive ones. There comes a time for many of our students when we need to pick up the phone and speak directly with one of their parents. Do you know what it is that you're going to say? First, you want to remember why calling directly home to speak with a parent is important. Sometimes we can send an update through email or the postal service, but a phone call is a much more direct way to communicate. Circumstances arise that require parents to hear your voice and enjoy a two-way conversation with you rather than just receiving a message in their inbox. A great question to ask yourself is, would I want the teacher to call me if I were the parent? If the answer is yes, then pick up the phone and know that you are doing both the parent and the student a service with your communication. Also, as we continue to think about parents as partners in the learning process, it's important to let parents know how their child is doing academically or if there was a behavioral problem. When students encounter a united front between their parents and teachers, they're more likely to do what's necessary to improve. But maybe you're feeling a little nervous about picking up the phone, or maybe you're not sure what to say. Don't worry, think about these tips. First, begin with some positives about the student. You don't have to flatter or embellish, but do genuinely tell the parent what you appreciate about their student. Then transition into the reason why you called. Don't feel like you need to water down the truth or put the news too gently to parents. Be professional, but be forthright with the reason you're calling and tell them exactly what it is you need them to know. Be ready to provide specifics and to clarify the information you're calling about. Give the parents a chance to process and respond to your news. If the student is receiving poor grades or has acted inappropriately, parents need a chance to think about what you've said. Give them a moment to do that and then to respond. Listen carefully without interrupting and take time to process what they're saying as well. One of our fears is that the parent may become belligerent or accusatory. This is definitely a possibility, though is usually more the exception than the rule. No matter what the parent says, remember that you're on the same team and have the best interests of the student at heart. Often, just listening carefully can accomplish more than growing defensive or arguing back. What you ultimately want to end with is a solution. You didn't call just to tattle. Instead, you needed to inform the parent that there is a problem and you want to work together to form a solution. Don't finish the conversation before you both have the same understanding of what it is about the student that needs addressing or what your next steps are. It's also good to finish the conversation with another positive statement about the student and an agreement as to when you'll be next in touch with one another. Now, everything I've just said assumes that you're calling home for negative reasons. But what if you called parents to share good news about their student instead? Remember that parent phone calls are not exclusively for talking about student problems. Think about how you might call parents and let them know what positive thing their child has done at school that week. They'll be pleasantly surprised by the call, and your student will be encouraged, and you'll feel great. So next time you need to make that parent phone call, don't fret. Remember to start with positive statements, be honest, listen carefully, and make the parent feel like a member of your team.
Wonderful. And so this video reminds us that we are a team. And calls, again, are really inclusive of positive calls and corrections calls, or we like to call growth opportunity calls. And so one way that we can do that is, again, having that script. We always open by introducing ourselves, asking permission to make sure this is a good time for our parents. And then it says, "Hello, my name is, I'm a teacher at this XYZ school. Is this a good time to share some good news? Is this a good time to share a growth opportunity as well?" So I have this is a good time to share some good news. And is this a good time to share a growth opportunity for your son or daughter? But then you want to say, is this a guardian or family member of the following student? Once they confirm who they are, then we go into the next phase of this, which is where we want to praise the scholar choices, but then we also want to add what the growth opportunity is. So we're still going to include always that positive piece, right? So we're going to say, okay, well, we know your son or daughter, they do a great job at the following things. It might be completing academic tasks and performing well on assessments. And those are the things these are their superpowers. But I'm calling specifically because I also want to let you know that there's some growth opportunities that exist as well. And I'm calling about specifically today, there was a situation where while I was teaching the whole class, there needed to be an opportunity for your son or daughter to follow classroom rules. It's so important for your child to raise their hand before speaking during instruction time, because today he or she made a joke. It took everyone's focus off of the lesson. So, and that would have been okay. Scholars do what they do. But when I tried to correct and redirect the scholar, they needed to respond appropriately. So it was an inappropriate response. And so is there anything new happening with your son or daughter that would benefit for me to know? Because this is not really usual behavior. So, help me, if there's something you can offer that in our partnership that could be beneficial, that would be appreciated. Anything I should know. And if they don't have anything to offer, it says, okay, well, we're a team. And so if you could just really encourage to say, look, we know that typically, this is not normal. So, hey, today was just one of those days. We all have them. But if you could just really encourage the fact that we expect you to follow protocol, raise your hand before speaking, making sure that, interactions are appropriate and it allows everyone to remain focused on the lesson. So you get really to the point of what's going on, right? So the scholar called out, the scholar cracked a joke, took everyone's attention off the learner, the teacher corrected them, and then their response was inappropriate, meaning they did something, they said something that, really they kept stretching the situation instead of saying, you know, just redirecting and getting back on task. So ending the call, we always ended on a positive note. So this is the same step as we did before. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate your partnership. It's the best number to reach you on in future forward when we communicate. And if you ever have any questions, please feel free to call me. You have a wonderful day. So at this point in time, go ahead and take some time to definitely write a script for your opportunities to correct. Again, you can use the same information that you use for those praise calls. This is what the scholar needed to do. This is what happened. And this is the behavior we're looking for too. We're looking for the scholar to follow directions. We need you to respond after the first correction was made. They needed to respond appropriately, And if the parent says, "What did they do?" Oh, well, they responded with a joke, or they responded with a comment, or they, to grab their peers' attention. And so, again, our learning target today was to provide a script and practice sharing some good news and growth opportunity phone calls. Growth opportunity phone calls it can sound like it's hard when you're trying to keep them positive. But the bottom line is the key formula is what occurred, brief, short, and sweet. You should be able to describe what occurred in 2 sentences, 2 to 3 sentences. That's it. So this is what occurred during the lesson today. This was this was the situation, and this is what I want to partnership with you to encourage that. This is what needs to happen moving forward, right? So speaking to the behavior we want to see. All right, wonderful. And in that comment, we don't want to have any judgment. So go ahead and reflect at this point. Name one thing that you will stop doing, one thing that you will keep doing, and one thing that you will do differently. And I hope if one of the things that you will do differently is to make more positive phone calls. It really helps to reset the culture in your classroom. Scholars look forward. They do gossip. They will start to say, "Oh my gosh, teacher called my house and gave me a positive compliment. And it was probably the first one I got all year. My parent was so happy," or, because teachers, is that a common practice? Not sure. So, but that phone call home could make all the difference. And so think about one thing you will stop doing, keep doing, and then one thing that you would do differently. And so with that, thank you so much for attending this 4-part sessions on classroom management. And this concludes our presentation. Thank you. You're amazing. And remember to be the change that you expect to see in the world.